Let's be cops. This spoiler is from an earlier screening, and sometimes, minor details may change. The movie opens with Ryan, Jake Johnson, singing karaoke to Justin, Damon Wayans Jr., in a pizza place. After the song, Justin explains that he's depressed, that they're both 30-year-old losers, living in law and maybe it's time to go back to Ohio. Ryan doesn't work, and Justin is unhappy in his job as an assistant for a video game developer. Justin also has a crush on the waitress Josie, Nina Dobrev, but is too scared to talk to her. The two head out to a dance club, where they're ignored by everyone. They leave, and Ryan's junker Camaro dies out front after the valet brings it up. Everyone in line is laughing at them. The large SUV behind them is beeping and flashing its lights. Finally, Ryan gets it started and pulls out as the SUV whips past. The vehicles collide. Ryan gets out and starts to yell at the people in the SUV. Everyone inside the SUV looks like Albanian mafia. In the rear, flanked by two hot ladies, is a scary guy with a scar over his eye. They laugh at Ryan. The next day, Justin is at work pitching his video game idea Patrolman Law. As a visual aid, he has two mannequins dressed as LAPD. The staff at the company is thoroughly disinterested, and his boss decides that firemen are hotter.as or zombies.the company should start work on firefighters versus zombies. Ryan is playing football in the park with a bunch of small children and aggressively destroying them. One of the kids is angry and asks Ryan what he does all day. He returns to his dad, who asks who Ryan is, and the kid explains that he's a nobody who thinks he's a coach. Justin returns to the apartment he and Ryan share. Ryan is dressed as a ghost because they're going to a costume party in June. Justin doesn't like the ghost costume, so instead they both go as LAPD using the uniforms from earlier. Justin lies and says the company bought his game idea. Turns out it's not a costume party, but a black tie masquerade ball. All of their old friends are there, even though it's established that they're both from Ohio and this is law. For some reason, they're playing Ryan's big college football moment on the television. His old friends ask whatever happened to him. He tells them he was injured. They clarify that they mean whatever happened to him in life. He says he did a commercial, herpes commercial, once. Feeling like losers again, Justin and Ryan leave the party, still dressed as cops. Justin confesses that he didn't sell the game. As they walk down the street, they can't help to notice that women are checking them out big time. Then a group of women run up and kiss them, explaining it's for a scavenger hunt. They confiscate and smoke weed from some young guys. They dig being mistaken for cops. They go back to the pizza place from before, and what a coincidence. The SUV from the night before is there. They go inside and interrupt the Albanian mob henchman from trying to muscle the shop owner Georgie into selling his business. Justin and Ryan make the mafia guys leave and everyone cheers. Josie takes a liking to Justin and they set up a date. The next day, Ryan watches videos online on how to be a cop. He also finds a used cop car on eBay. He texts Justin at work asking when they can go out as cops again. Justin isn't sure it's a good idea. Then he gets a message from his boss telling him to be prepared to take notes during the firefighters versus zombies meeting. Justin leaves work. On his way home, Justin is pulled over by a cop car. Inside it's actually Ryan. He bought the car and lights online and made the door diesels at Kinko's. He also gave himself sergeant stripes because he felt he deserved a promotion. The two screw around in the car all day, but that night they're pulled over by real cops Officer Seegers, Rob Riggle, and his partner see Ryan's sergeant stripes and apologize. Right when Justin and Rob are about to drive away, the alarm from the hardware store they're all in front of sounds. All four go inside. The real cops and fake cops split up. The fake cops encounter a tweaking Asian armed with a shovel. He runs off, but the coast isn't clear. A large naked Asian man charges them and tackles Justin. His dick and balls smear across Justin's face. The real cops come in and tell them they should all split up again to find the shovel guy. Instead, Justin and Ryan run off. Seegers notices, but doesn't stop them. The Albanian mafia guys report back to their boss that some beat cops stopped them at Georgie's pizza place. Their boss is Mossy, James Darcy, the scar-face guy from the back of the SUV. Mossy is angry and says that he's the law in town. The next day Ryan takes his police car to the park and scares the kids from earlier. Justin and Josie go on a date. Her dream is to be a makeup artist. She tells him she tends to attract the wrong kind of guys. For example, there's one guy now who's super intense and scares her. Yeah, of course it's going to be Mossy. He tries to tell her that he's not really a cop, but she takes off her top and he's rendered speechless. Outside, henchmen in the SUV watch everything through the window. Ryan and Justin are out patrolling when they get a call for a domestic disturbance at a sorority house. Naturally they go. A hot girl answers the door and says two of the girls are fighting. The two fighting girls are kinda like Flava of Love cast members and viciously girl fighting. Ryan and Justin try to break it up, but one of the girls kicks both of their asses. Later Josie calls Justin in a panic and asks him to come to the pizza place. Ryan and Justin go there and meet Mossy. Mossy tells Justin to stay away from his girl and slaps him silly. Ryan tries to stand up to him, but Mossy doesn't back down. Justin decides it's time to stop being a fake cop. The next day Justin looks up online exactly how illegal it is to impersonate an officer. He decides he and Ryan should go to the police station and turn themselves in. However, Seegers sees them and pulls them aside. Justin tells him about Mossy trying to muscle the pizza place. Seegers says he knows about Mossy, but there isn't enough money in the budget for an investigation. Ryan volunteers themselves to investigate on their own. They check out a bunch of equipment from the police station and stake out Mossy's compound. Ryan is now wearing a suit and has his badge on a chain around his neck. He's promoted himself to detective. They go to a nearby apartment to get a better angle to stake out the compound. The apartment is owned by a scene-stealing Natasha Leggero who is rolling on ecstasy. She gets hot for a man in uniform. Ryan goes back to his uniform. They see Mossy get a shipment of large black crates and meet with Andy García. Andy García tells Mossy to lay low because he pulls a picture of Ryan and Justin out of an envelope. These guys. Their badge numbers don't match up and he thinks they might be feds. Naturally, Justin and Ryan are excited to be mistaken for feds. They need more evidence, particularly to know what was in those black crates, so they take off and pull over the delivery truck that brought them to Mossy. They get it and kidnap the driver pupa, Keegan-Michael Key. They effectively try to torture him, but he explains that he'll help because he doesn't like Mossy either. Mossy is having a party tonight, and if they get in, they can find out what's in the cases. Josie comes over and helps make up Justin to look like Pupa. At the party, Mossy forces Pupa to smoke crank. He fights and beats one of the henchmen and lets Ryan into the building. They go in the basement and find that inside the crates are confiscated weapons from the police. Ryan wants to continue, but Justin tells him everything has gone too far. Everyone thinks Ryan is a loser and his big injury that kept him from playing football happened when he jumped off a roof at a party. Ryan tells Justin that he's a coward and never stands up for himself. Ryan goes to the police station and tells Seegers what they found. Also says the reason Mossy was muscling the pizza place is because it's at the other end of a tunnel and that's how Mossy keeps hiding evidence when the police raids him. He's about to show Seegers what he found, but before he can, Seegers decides they should bring the cop in charge of internal investigations in on this. What a surprise, it's Andy García. Seegers leaves for a moment and García looks at the evidence. Ryan tells him that he made copies. Ryan goes home in a panic as Justin decides to stand up for himself and pitch his game again. Firefighters vs. Zombies is a disaster. Justin's pitch serves as a voiceover for Ryan's action. Justin's game isn't just a game, it's an experience. It lets you feel the intensity and action of being a real cop and in a firefight. Ryan goes home, and it looks clear, but when he turns around, he's shot in the chest with a shotgun. Luckily it's a Hollywood shotgun, and he's wearing a Hollywood vest because instead of killing him, it just blows him out the window and onto the dumpster below. He runs as he's being shot at by the mafia. A crooked cop crashes Justin's pitch, and a shootout starts up. Justin runs away, and his boss says, "Now that's a pitch. Let's make that game." The mafia kidnaps Ryan. Mossy calls Justin and tells him to come or Ryan's dead. Justin calls Seegers and comes clean about everything. In the basement of the compound, Mossy and García torture Ryan. Justin sneaks in through the basement of the pizza place, coming clean to Josie on the way. Riggle shows up at Mossy's and García is going to get rid of him. Before he's out of earshot though, he hears Ryan telling Mossy that García is going to kill him too, to cover up all loose ends. García goes back to kill Ryan, but Mossy kills García instead. Justin hears the gunshot and runs to the rescue. He doesn't have a gun though. Luckily Seegers does, and he's also on the scene. He shoots one of the henchmen, prompting Mossy and the rest to run off. Seegers is going to give chase, but first tells Justin and Ryan to leave because a police outfit isn't a costume, it's a uniform. They decide they have to cover Seeger's back, so they grab some of the stolen weapons and go to help. They're not good at it, and it looks like Seeger's is down, so they run away. Mossy chases them, shoots Justin and fights Ryan. Justin grabs the gun and tries to shoot Mossy, but accidentally shoots Ryan instead. Before Mossy can kill them, Seeger's shows up, kills Mossy and saves the day. He lets Justin and Ryan go and doesn't turn them in. Justin's game, now called Brothers in Blue, is a hit. Ryan becomes a cop for real. Justin asks Josie for a chance to start over and they kiss. Over the end credits, there are various scenes of Ryan and Justin acting inappropriately while dressed as cops.